Welcome to the Bell Integration Studios. My name is Andrew, and today we're going to be talking about cloud technology. But don't worry, I'm not just going to be talking to me. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by my very special guest today, Mr. Stewart Jordan. Stewart, welcome to the studio. Do you want to start by maybe telling us a little bit about what it is you do at Bell Integration?
Sure. My name's Stewart Jordan. I work for Bell Integration as one of their cloud specialists, predominantly on the sales side. I've worked in the cloud environment for 10 plus years. Recently joined Bell to head up their cloud services operation.
Stuart, it's been over a decade since people first started talking about cloud technology, and there have been so many different evolutions of it. Where are we now? How would you define cloud technology?
The $100,000 question. Cloud can mean all things to all men and women within IT. You know, put simply, I would suggest it's having your company data, computing power, networking, etc., somewhere else other than your premises, and having your employees the ability to access that from any device, pretty much anywhere in the world. A lot of industry specialists will shoot me down in flames over that, but keeping it simple, that to me is in the main what cloud would be defined as.
So the big question, Stuart, why would businesses, or why should businesses move from traditional on-premise into a managed cloud service?
First thing I'll say on that is it's not necessarily for everyone. There are significant advantages that our customers have leveraged from moving to cloud, but it's not a one size fits all. But in the main, you're looking at significant cost advantages over, you know, off on-premise based equipment. If anything, the pandemic has shown that the increased need for business flexibility and the increased need for business scalability means that cloud allows you to leverage that, throttle up, throttle down, enable new users to access. Um, Reduced time to market is another good one, particularly where organizations have had to move from a bricks and mortar environment very rapidly into accelerating their e-commerce environments. So again, cloud gives them the ability, scalability, and cost control around that. And one of the biggest, probably the biggest buzzwords around IT at the moment, which everyone keeps banging on about, is security. Now, operating, managing, and purchasing a comprehensive security solution that is actually going to be up to date, real time, is very difficult for a small, medium organization. It's not even that easy for a large corporate. So leveraging the ability of a large cloud provider to provide you with a secure environment for your customer data probably will be one of the most compelling reasons to do so.
But is it best to just move everything to the cloud?
No, not really. Early early on, I think there was the early adopters of cloud went in belt and braces and threw everything into a public cloud or a third-party cloud environment. Some of them have come back with not quite horror stories, but maybe unrealistic expectations that weren't realized. So, it may be that your organization has recently, bought new equipment within their own data center, which is still sitting on the books and still sitting there as an asset. At Bell, our job is to really look at the existing environment and see what we can leverage out of your existing infrastructure. That then, if we are moving part of your infrastructure into a cloud environment, then becomes part of your, if you like, hybrid corporate cloud. So you may still have sensitive data that you don't want anywhere else other than on premise within your data center. That's great. You do that. We'll manage that on your behalf, but we'll integrate your other, shall we say, less risky workflows or applications into the more flexible, scalable environment of the public cloud. But overall, you're managing a single corporate environment where that data or where that information sits becomes kind of superfluous. It's really down to how it's looked after.
Stuart, what are some of the major considerations that companies should have when they don't have the in-house cloud expertise themselves?
I think my upfront answer will be you need to find a partner that you can work with that's going to help transfer their knowledge and skills to you as an organization, but also help guide you in what you need to know. I think with a lot of the companies that I've been speaking to over the last few years, it's a case of they don't know what they don't know. I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but actually, the exploration side and the preparation side of migration to cloud is probably the most important piece. And it's often the most neglected piece where you'll talk to a senior IT manager or an IT director within an organization, and they'll say, well, yes, we must go to cloud. And if you ask them the why, they haven't necessarily got an answer. And coming back to your first question, if I turn that question on, what do I think cloud is to one of my customers? If I was talking to 20 customers, I'd get 20 different answers. So I think what you need is kind of an independent partner that has experience in this area, but also is to some extent vendor agnostic. So we can help guide you with the experience of people that have already taken the leap. Now, we've got that data from a lot of customers that we've worked with in the past, and apply that to either your particular business in a particular market or your particular environment from a technical perspective. So my first point of call would be, don't necessarily try and do it all yourself. Work with a trusted partner that's going to consult with you and help you find out the building blocks of where we go on your cloud journey.
With so many different cloud services and vendors out there, where do businesses even know where to begin?
Usually on their search browser, I would imagine, and you'll end up there with no answers at all, because you're quite right. There are so many different providers. There are so many different organizations that will push you down a certain path. I think the difference here at Bell is we are vendor agnostic. So what we've tried to do with our customers and prospective customers is take a view, as I've just said, of what you've got now, look at the application workloads, and then explain which of those particular cloud providers would be best fit, and more importantly, why they'd be best fit. It may be down to the economics of how your workloads are built. It may be down to the importance of security to your organization. Maybe simply be down to a cultural fit of you working with another organization. So, our view of the world would be to, pick best fit, but also understand, as I said at the start, that it may involve actually leveraging the best out of your existing technologies that you've already spent money on, and saying we can do more with this in a better way. We can help you manage it better. Therefore, which is going to sound strange coming from a salesperson, but reducing your dependency on moving everything to the cloud. It's all about that working relationship with the organization moving forward. And it needs to be done in a gradual way. People often, if they don't know what they don't know, need to take baby steps to prove that they're going to be comfortable with their final destination.
Stewart, is there a way that businesses can assess whether or not they could or should move certain services onto the cloud, and maybe what it would cost?
I think some could. There are a lot of organisations out there with very weighty and skilled IT organisations. I think what we bring to the party is we often, because you can have in a large or even a small organisation lots of pockets of data or technologies scattered around either geographically or within one single building. I think a third party coming in and working with the organisation allows you to assess, maybe from a more independent view, because even within organisations, you'll find certain IT silos will have ownership of what they've built and what technology they've got. And I think it's important, for the business as a whole, to be able to run a skillful, process-driven assessment. Now, we do this day in, day out. Now, not many organisations will be doing an in-depth analysis of their own environments on a daily basis. We do it for a myriad of organisations, from large multinational telecoms providers, large finance houses, down to small SMB businesses with 5 or 6 offices around the world, that may have what on the face of it seems a very small requirement. So having done that, we actually architect an analysis process with our clients. So there's a defined timeline on the scale of what we're going to do. There's a deliverable at the end of it, which is, this is what you've got now. This is the assessment of your present requirement. these are the workloads, the technologies that you're working with and want to work with. And by the way, here's a recommendation that a large chunk of that could go into a public cloud environment and save your business up to 30% of its operating cost.
I suppose it's always important with any type of technology in a business is a skills gap, and plenty of companies out there will have skills gap with their cloud technologies. What can they do about that?
From Bell's perspective, we approach it in two ways. One is if technology can be traditional, it is the traditional way of helping manage the service and manage the migration. So providing professional services to an organization to allow them to move from A to B and move their workloads and technology to the cloud. The second part of that is some organizations may decide that they want to be managing that environment themselves and managing the migration themselves. So we will put professional services, project management, but also education facilities for the IT piece to upskill them to where they need to be. We can provide third-party training around specific technologies, be it a cloud provider or a hardware provider or an application provider, and even down to networking. So we work with our partners to deliver training, accreditation, etc., to make sure that you're also compliant in the environment. Or you can hand the whole thing over to Bell and we'll do it for you, running alongside your existing IT infrastructure and IT department, but actually managing your cloud infrastructure on your behalf.
Stuart, what about impacting services both post and during a migration? Can we stop it?
Yeah, that's another very valuable question. Being honest, it can be very disruptive, or has the potential to be very disruptive. It's a very obvious statement, but the majority of businesses and companies worldwide run their business and sit on an infrastructure that is absolutely vital to keeping their business going. The last 12 months has shown us that people are now even more dependent, where you've got large utilities still with their call center staff being based from home, reliant on disparate technologies to actually function. So to suddenly say we're going to pick this one piece of technology up, this one basis of your entire business, and take it from one place to another is never going to be simple. So as part of the assessment and the proposal process, and as I mentioned earlier, the professional services side, it's building a strong project plan alongside your business. It's not dictating this is what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. It's understanding that some businesses, fortunately for us, maybe effectively close down over weekends, so we can schedule the majority of the hard yards to be done during downtimes within the business. It may be that we look at more seasonal areas for doing migrations where, let's say you're a retailer that has a high peak at Christmas, you're probably not going to want to do your major migration in November or December of that year. So it's a case of assessing the potential business impact and mitigating any risk. And there are various technical solutions we can bring to bear on that as well, which may involve, potentially putting somewhere for a short period of time before we move it ultimately, or running applications in parallel so you've still got the service to your customer. And one of the advantages of cloud, which we mentioned earlier, is actually we could spin up a new environment, test it, make sure everything's work, and then switch over while your existing environment is still working. So again, and once we've done that, we can just turn the other workload off, so you're not running two workloads at the same time. So I guess the actual project management and migration is an illustration of the flexibility of what cloud can give to a business.
Stuart, compliancy, always a big thing. Data compliancy, legal sometimes. Do companies need to be aware of this before their migration to cloud?
It can actually add a layer of complexity, but it also comes into picking the best cloud provider relevant to your business. Certain financial organizations, for example, can only hold customer data within the confines of their own country. So, for example, you couldn't go into some of the larger public cloud providers where there's no definition of where that data is going to sit. It may end up in a data center in Germany, which is non-compliant if you're operating from the UK. So, again, it's down to showing an organization where the risk points are around compliance, because compliance has become, if you failure to comply has become very expensive. Governments and regulatory bodies are now very keen to open the fine book and say you need to pay us 4%, up to 4% of your worldwide turnover, etc. But what it also does, it provides an opportunity for the business, from our perspective, to help manage them, but also put them in a compliance environment, particularly around customer data and financial transactions. I mentioned earlier, it can actually be quite expensive for you as a small business to be able to look after that customer data in a compliant way. But if we can put you into a PCI compliant environment that already exists, that meets all the regulatory requirements, and you're just paying for that as a service, then that gives you much more flexibility as an organization. And I think back to one of my past customers that was a very small app-based credit card provider, and they were invite only to start with, and they had about 1,000 users. Um, they approached a large financial organization that had over 600,000 subscribers, basically credit card users, and they took on the management of all those users virtually overnight. But because their infrastructure was based in a public cloud environment, they were able to scale up quickly. They knew that the environment was compliant, so therefore their contract with the financial organization was very easy to negotiate and to be confident that all their customer data was going to be, again, in a secure environment. So, it's down to the consultancy approach again, but also it can actually deliver a business advantage to a small business that may need to scale or doesn't really want a compliance officer or have to make everything secure within their data center.
Stuart, I have my new cloud environment. It's all ready to go. How do I then manage it and develop it?
Yeah, I guess I touched on this earlier. If you have a large IT organization and have the skills in-house, there's nothing stopping you doing that. A lot of the solutions we provide will provide you with management capability and statistics, the ability via a portal to look at your different environments. So actually, although you may have your own data center, you may have some areas of public cloud where your infrastructure is sitting, you will have a single management tool that will allow you to manage those environments internally. It may be, and has often been the case, sadly, over the last 12 to 18 months, a lot of people have trimmed down their IT organization. It may be that you don't have the requisite skills or don't want to carry the cost of a dedicated manager for that business. So, from Bell's perspective, we would offer a cloud managed services offering to our organization, to our customers, that we can manage the entire environment and then report to you as and when required.
Why should people consider Bell Cloud Services?
Key benefits, first and foremost, people are always talking about money. So, up to a 30% reduction in operational cost. Second piece, particularly at the moment, cash is king. People do not really want to be outlaying large amounts of cash. So we're looking at an operational expenditure model rather than a capital expenditure model. You've got much more flexibility for collaboration of workloads and productivity for workforces that are increasingly going to be working from home. Spoke about it earlier, but reduced time to market, the ability to react, say your app takes off or you suddenly buy another organization or you take on new companies. The ability to adapt to that quickly, efficiently and compliantly is a big one. In the main, you're going to be in a more reliable environment, so improved uptime, reliability. These large cloud providers have to maintain a certain level of investment within the infrastructure. That means that your service levels are going to be probably in excess of what your existing managed service levels would be. Help you to drive innovation. Talked about the ability to look at developing, particularly in the application development environment. You can spin up an environment, work in that environment, create your new application, then switch it off again. So it's consumption-based model, pay as you play. Don't worry to have to invest in a large internal environment for you to develop new applications or business ventures. improve security for the business. We spoke about that earlier around security and compliance. But if I'm going to wear my bell hat firmly on my head, which I have to, we as an organisation have got extensive experience in doing this. We've got huge corporate organisations that we've worked with. I mentioned before, large international telecommunications providers. We've also got small businesses, so we understand the difference between the two. We understand what actually impacts on the different styles of business. And I'm afraid to use a cliche to finish off my pitch with a small p, is that we're a very safe pair of hands and we'll work with your business.
Thank you, Stuart. And that was Mr. Stuart Jordan from Bell Integration. And we were talking about cloud technology and companies' journeys towards the cloud. Thank you for joining us here at Bell Integration Studios. I hope to see you again. But until next time, I'll see you soon.